Hello, and welcome, Alain. Alain Revah is with us. This is the Miami Tech Opportunity and Strategy from Silicon Valley to Miami. I'm your host, Mark. Hi, Alain, how are you?
Hi, Marc-Antoine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. That's
It's awesome.
brilliant. Alain Revah, Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer for Ÿnsect. We're waiting for Jack Abraham, founder, managing partner, and CEO at Atomic. We are a couple of minutes late. We do have a lot of people already connected and connecting. So thank you, Alain, for being with us.
Absolutely.
Maybe you could start with maybe telling us a little bit. What's your view on the Silicon Valley versus Miami?
So I guess I was chosen to be the moderator of this panel because I myself, came from Silicon Valley to Miami 2 years ago. So I was privy to the number of people who actually moved also from San Francisco to Miami. They usually reached out to me or through friends, got acquainted and asked me about everything that you need to know about Miami, where to live, where to work, where to play, where to put your kids in school, etc.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be here today. And I also think that Jack is a very good example of a top level investor entrepreneur who actually decided to move to Miami, and it's very significant if you have some of the heavy hitters of Silicon Valley here. All of a sudden, it gives a lot of gravitas to the local scene, and it gives a lot of impetus for any entrepreneur to actually be here and meet and build their companies in Miami.
For sure. Would you like to introduce yourself and your company first?
Sure. No, absolutely. So I'm Alain Revah. I'm the Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer of Ÿnsect. Ÿnsect is a vertical farm, company, but we farm insects instead of the usual leafy greens or berries that you can find in vertical farms. And what we do with the insect is we extract a very high quality protein, about 72% protein, and we feed that to the animal nutrition market, the human nutrition market, the animal health market, and the human health market. So the applications are very, very, very broad, from agriculture to poultry and pigs to pet food, but also to sports nutrition, human health. We've done some major discoveries around the insect that we chose and around the protein that we produce. But we also produce an organic fertilizer, which is one of the best organic fertilizers on the market. We also produce an oil, which is cooking oil quality, but used in pet food and other applications. So there's essentially three products that we produce: the protein from the insect, the oil, and the fertilizer for the agriculture market. The company was founded 10 years ago and has raised about $500 million in venture capital, funds from the US, funds from Europe, from France, Belgium, Switzerland, England, and funds from Asia, from Singapore and Hong Kong mainly.
Fantastic. That's very interesting industry and market. Being in the Silicon Valley first, what was the biggest motivation to move to Miami? What was the opportunity there?
So I think there's two. I guess my arrival in Miami was took two steps. I first came here in 2014 and spent about 2 years in Miami, scoping out the scene, meeting the people here, and trying to see if there was something that could be built, that could be done here. I was moving from New York City, and I'd love to come here on the weekends, and I thought, well, maybe I could live here, and that would mean also finding the right ingredients to actually be able to thrive professionally, not just only personally. So essentially, I tried, in 2014, and had to go to Silicon Valley and to San Francisco, and help build the company there. The company went public on the Nasdaq in January of this year. So essentially, the impetus for the move was the belief that you could build something, from the foundations that were set by a few people here, but also the fact that the quality of life is conducive to actually working and doing great work. In Silicon Valley, it was becoming a very, very complex situation between commuting, some sort of a rat race, feeling, which has also some good sides to it, right? Because there's very healthy emulation, but it also felt that you didn't have enough space to expand. You didn't have enough space to explore and reflect. And I think here, there's just a lot more time, and it's a lot higher quality of life in general, which is conducive to doing great work. And so, I in particular had to be on the East Coast because the company that we're building, Ÿnsect, is based in Paris. So, traveling back and forth from Silicon Valley isn't the easiest. So that's one of the reasons why I moved. And we have Jack, with us.
Hello, Jack.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, great to see you.
We tackled a little bit the subject of the opportunity from the Silicon Valley to Miami. What really motivated Alain to come and settle down in Miami?
Mm-hmm.
Jack, you're a newbie around here.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about first yourself and your company? You're the founder and managing partner and CEO of Atomic. And maybe dive into your motivations for this move.
Yeah, I think that people from the West Coast, so from Silicon Valley, say, probably haven't spent much time in Miami. Miami is very far away from Silicon Valley. It's about a 5.5 to 6.5 hour flight. It's multiple time zones that you have to hop to get here. So many people from Silicon Valley have not spent much time in Miami, and that included myself. I might have been here a couple of weekends with my family, things like that. But it was a different kind of an experience. It was, maybe you stay on South Beach, you get exposure to what you might stereotypically think about as Miami. And what ended up happening is during the pandemic, I got invited to join a bunch of friends who were staying here for about a week. And unfortunately for me, about 3 or 4 days into that trip, I actually got COVID. It wasn't bad. I basically had very little symptoms, which was great. But, as a result, I couldn't fly back to San Francisco. And my friends from New York that were staying with me, they all actually had COVID before. They found out from an antibody test. So they were fine staying with me. We ended up hopping around from place to place, exploring the communities, the places where people actually live in Miami. And, we probably checked out 3 or 4 different areas over the span of a month. And once you really understand the depth of the communities that are here, the people that are here, the kind of vibrancy of the city, the energy of the city, Miami really has, I think, some of the best of New York and the best of LA in it, 2 of the best cities in the United States. And I just fell in love with it and decided to make the move, found a place that I loved, decided to buy it. And that was kind of how it got going for me. It turns out it's a remarkable place from an economic perspective as well. Not just are there amazing people from the tech industry here, which I helped kind of snowball and get going, but also the finance industry, real estate, healthcare, et cetera.
Love will make you do absolutely everything, even move to Miami. That's probably what's happening here. But Alain, maybe you want to take over and give us more of the incentives, the incentive side.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. So, Jack, there was always a thank you first, for joining us and taking a little bit in your day to share your experience. There was always this belief in Miami that until the heavy hitters from Silicon Valley moved to Miami, nothing would really happen. And so when you came and you moved, I was like, oh, it is happening. and so can you talk about the Snowball Effect and how you did the move, and then how people reached out to you and how, who and how, the whole snowball effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as was mentioned, Run Atomic, we start a number of companies and we scale them up, and we always partner with other investors as they're scaling up. So a lot of other investors in Silicon Valley, oftentimes kind of the founders or the managing directors of funds, they like to catch up with us, and specifically with me, on kind of a periodic basis, just to see, hey, what's going on in your portfolio? What could be interesting for us to take a look at and invest in? So I do those Zooms sort of periodically. And during the time of the pandemic, the perennial question you would always get, of course, is, where are you? It was just assumed that you weren't in the Bay Area because pretty much no one from our industry was in the Bay Area that previously was. And when I would say Miami, people would be like, interesting. Miami, okay. Tell me more. Like, why are you in Miami? What's kind of going on here? Almost to the point where, no one was here at that point. So I just felt the need to defend the decision. And I just explained to them, not with an agenda of trying to get them to move here, but simply my logic and reasoning for moving here, why I thought it was a great move, why I thought the city had legs, and why I thought it could become a major tech center in the future. And not all, but the majority of the people, kind of those high level people that I spoke with ended up making a move. I was the catalyst for Founders Fund coming out here with Keith Boys and Peter Thiel. I got David Sachs to move out here from Kraft, which is huge. Love David. He's really amazing. And then early on put the bug in the ear of Josh Kushner, who also was aided by Barry Sternlicht, who I know here, who he knows well, but helped kind of plant the seed there from Thrive Capital. And then a lot of other entrepreneurs and investors as well, who have kind of helped who have come since. But yeah, that's kind of how the snowball works. And then those people bring people, and those people bring people, and boom, 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 boom. Before you know it, we've got a real ecosystem here. So it's funny that what started as a case of COVID really snowballed and turned into something fairly big.
No, absolutely. Earlier, I was telling Jack and the audience that I came here in 2014, and I remember friends from Silicon Valley, telling me how I would destroy, my career, in that there was nobody there, and that all my network was in Silicon Valley or New York, and that it would be really, really difficult to work with them if I was away, et cetera, et cetera. And then I ended up, going back to San Francisco in 2016, and just obviously thriving there, but being able to come back at the end of 2019, and trying to justify the move back then was equally difficult. Then the pandemic hit, and then it was a lot easier just from a pandemic standpoint. And then the snowball effect happened, thanks to you and to a few others, and I think it created this sense of momentum. Marcelo Clare from SoftBank and Javier Yamizar coming back, and here Michel Combe, the CEO of SoftBank International, also moving here. Sandeep, the CEO of WeWork, who's also living in Miami. I mean, it created like this movement. Do you believe that companies can be built here? Investing, is it more difficult? Is it easier? And so those are the two sort of pronged, questions I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely build companies here. Absolutely. There isn't as big of a pool of talent as on the West Coast, say in Silicon Valley. That being said, there's a lot less competition. So you don't have Google here or Apple or Facebook throwing these crazy offers at people, which it's hard to compete with as a startup. I mean, you have limited resources, you have limited amount of capital. So that, it is a smaller pool, but it's also less competition, and there is an inflow of people constantly moving here more and more. So there's kind of a lot of inflow. A lot of people are moving here. I think generally people that are moving out of the West Coast, they kind of think of either Miami or Austin. And then New York is also a contender. And then people from New York, and up the East Coast, kind of all the way to Boston, usually are thinking of Miami, maybe Austin. So I just think there's going to continue to be an inflow of talent here. But I also think that we are in this new world, and this depends on what people think about this, but where remote and distributed works. Our portfolio was forced to go remote during COVID, and the companies started doing better. We started doing better. We, in like 2019, we started 6 companies. 2020, we started 9. This year so far, we've started 14. So it can work if you know how to do it right. We've kind of been instrumented to do it well from the beginning, because pre-pandemic, we had like 10 offices across North America, across our portfolio and for ourselves. So we kind of already knew how to do that. So I think the combination of those two works really well. In terms of investments, it's actually been very interesting. I've found some incredible investments here that have like 10x in under a year, which is crazy. I mean, you don't usually find that. Silicon Valley, like, there's definitely some discrepancy, at least right now, in like the pricing of companies here versus Silicon Valley in the early rounds. And I think some founders want some people involved that can like bridge them to those capital sources. So the degree to which you can help with that or help them materially, there are these kind of early rounds you can get access to here that could be great entry points for investing.
That's great. And so you haven't seen any impediment in you being here. Of course, the remote movement obviously was instrumental, but that proximity that we used to have to the powers that be in Silicon Valley, be it people at Apple, people at Facebook, people at Google, people at some of the largest startups, where you would meet them randomly at this dinner or at this party or at this cafe or that event, and maintain and build those relationships with access to information, access to deals, access to partnerships, whatever. Is that something that is gone and because we're in Miami, or is that something that it can be still fruitful and connected because we're here? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, my perspective is that actually the big companies really ruined Silicon Valley in many ways. I mean, they drove up prices. They started paying people insane cash comp, insane amount of RSUs, and people became really lazy and complacent. Google, the joke is like you get a job there and you go in at 11 a.m. on this nice bus, and then you work for an hour, and then at noon you go to lunch for like an hour and a half, and then you have this like smoothie slurpee thing, and then like you work until like 3 or 3:30, and then you take the bus back, and like you only get graded once a quarter on your OKRs, and you just kind of do the minimum amount of work to hit your OKRs. So specifically, Google really ruined Silicon Valley. It took the best and the brightest people in the United States and essentially made them lazy for the most part and taught them the wrong things. And these people could have been super successful and contributed to the startup ecosystem in an incredible way. But companies like that actually brainwash these people and sort of take them out of the labor pool, so to speak, of startups. And then the other large companies have to react to that and adopt similar policies. So I think like the work ethic really, came down a lot in Silicon Valley. And I think the talent has honestly deteriorated a lot. We actually stopped hiring primarily out of Silicon Valley years ago, even before the pandemic, for that reason. So, the one thing that Silicon Valley still has somewhat is there are a lot of venture capitalists there. That being said, the venture capitalists don't like doing in-person meetings anymore. They like Zoom. It's nice. They can work from home. So, you can meet with them whether you're in Silicon Valley or not. That could change, of course, but a lot of them have actually moved. A lot of them left Silicon Valley. Not all of them. I'd say the ones that don't live in San Francisco, maybe they live in Atherton or Menlo Park, they're more likely to have stayed. The ones that lived in San Francisco have just fled, and they're
For sure.
God knows where. So, it's a lot less critical. It's a lot less critical now. I'd say the other thing that's different now versus before is there's just so much information available on the internet that can be helpful to founders, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, different forums, different classes that are put together. If you're motivated, you can learn almost anything. So I don't think it's as critical.
That's awesome. We have a question from the audience. Is the idea to recreate a Silicon Valley, Silicon Beach, or do you think it is going to be one of a kind city and ecosystem?
It's a good question. These kinds of monikers get labeled over time. I don't know that it needs to be Silicon Beach or whatnot. I think in reality, we are going to be in this more remote, distributed, multi-hub kind of an environment. And I think Miami will be one of the large hubs going forward. I think it'll be really, really appealing. And I think a lot of people will come here. Over time, that might compound and it might become the biggest city in like a decade. That's entirely possible. So getting in on it early and building with it and knowing all the key players and growing with that could be very key. That being said, I don't think its success is dependent on that at all. I mean, I think you can be successful whether that happens or not. So I don't know that necessarily should be or needs to be the goal.
Absolutely. There's another question from the audience about Y Combinator and accelerators, and who do you think will take the lead in Miami as the hottest accelerator? With this caveat that Y Combinator is kind of remote anyway. I mean, most people who have applied and entered at Y Combinator are anywhere around the world. They don't have to be in Silicon Valley for the office hours, which are largely on Zoom.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one of the things that Y Combinator does a very good job at is it's really lonely early on when you're starting a company. It's this experience of working out of a coffee shop and feeling like you're on your own and scrapping things together. And it creates a community of people that are going through the same set of challenges in addition to learning things. And they do that a lot in person. Their events were really great. I mean, founders really like that, their dinners and things like that. It was also, a lot of it was connecting with other founders and like sharing experiences and making friends and feeling like you had a built-in community. So that is maybe the one point in company building where in-person is nice. And yeah, whether Y Combinator does in-person stuff here or another accelerator and takes that opportunity, I do think it's an opportunity that someone will take.
Great. Last question, so that we actually keep on with the timing. What is the impact of the governors, the state, the city? The mayor of Miami has been very, very vocal. Do you feel welcome? Is that impactful? Is this something that you view as critically important for Miami and its development?
Yeah, I feel incredibly welcomed. I'm shocked and surprised and feel great that someone in the government will even talk to me or return my calls. In San Francisco, you call someone in the government and they hang up at your face or throw egg on your face. I mean, they hate successful people. Like, even if you created all the jobs and you contributed to the economy and paid a lot of tax through your companies and yourself, they hate
or donated a hospital.
Sorry?
Or donated a hospital.
Yeah, you get egg thrown on your face for like helping build a hospital for kids. So you have to keep in mind, I'm coming from the opposite environment. You can call the cops having been assaulted or, have your house broken in and they won't even come, particularly if you're in a nice neighborhood. But here, You know, for example, we had a situation with our neighbor where the dog just kept barking and barking and barking, and they let the dog outside, and eventually, you know, it just gets to be too much. We called the cops. In a minute, 2 cops showed up, and they walked right over. Let me tell you, in San Francisco, that would never, ever happen. So this is just a very different place. It's, you know, much more efficiently run. I think the government wants to compete to be competitive, and the government wants this place to thrive and grow and has a vision for what they want it to become. And I think that that's really great. I also think they're really welcoming to people. Some of the people that, you know, from my firm, for example, were considering moving here, the government actually met with them and answered their questions and helped sell them, and, you know, took them around to different places and walks of places and helped introduce them to the schools and help them figure out how to navigate that. That's just not something I've been used to at all. So I think it's absolutely remarkable. And as a result, like, the degree to which we can help the government and we can help the people here and donate and, you know, create programs or help schools or, you know, create more jobs and help figure out like how to partner, like, we want to do that. We want to do that. But the key thing is just establishing that dialogue. And I'm so unused to it that I almost don't know what to do with it. But it's a very pleasant surprise, and it feels very welcoming.
So that's great. Well, thank you very much for accepting to be part of this and answering our questions candidly. You know, we are exactly on time, so that was great, Marc-Antoine and the team.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Jack, and thank you, Alain, for this session, being here with us. We really appreciate it very, very much, and also your very kind words on Miami, Jack. It resonates personally. I do believe what you believe in Miami.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you on behalf of French Tech Miami. Thank you.
Of course. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
See you guys later.
Our next table will be Miami to become the capital of the capital. It's happening now, so please leave this table and go to session on the right-hand side or left-hand side of your screen and join the session that's coming up. Miami to become the capital of capital. I'll see you there.